Hey everybody, it's Brian Burns and welcome to this episode of Career Advice, Hacking, Ideas, Options, and pretty much anything to make you happy in your career, your job, whatever you choose to do with your life to help support yourself and make some money. Today I want to talk about IQ. And I was on YouTube and I found this author, professor. I won't name him because you might like him. But I don't want to discourage him or disparage his work because I like a lot of his work, but I didn't like this one thing that he had done. He had basically outlined, based off of IQ, the profession that you could get. And at first I was like, at the very top end, I get it. Certainly, I could never become a mathematician or a physicist. Or even understand a lot of that. I kind of maxed out at algebra 2.5 or 3. But that doesn't mean I can't be successful. And also, just because we don't fit into the academic mold. And on my other podcast, The Brutal Truth About Sales and Selling, I had a Harvard PhD on who talked about getting out of your comfort zone. And, and he explained his story. He, from kindergarten, academics was just natural for him. He fit into it. And we've seen those people who the world just works the way they think. And then we see people, and I'm one of them, where the world doesn't kind of work the way you think, and you don't think the way the world thinks. But it's okay. You find a different way of getting around it. And that is okay. And there is, both, I think, a limit at the top end. Certainly I'm not going to understand nuclear fusion and space travel, but nor do I need to. Or maybe you don't need to either. And then at the bottom end, I'm sure there are people that have handicaps and are limited intellectually. But if you're listening to this podcast, you're not one of them. Because if you're smart enough to have a smartphone and smart enough to invest in your career and learn about what works, IQ is not an issue. We're in the range where basically we'll do fine. Meaning that there's been so much talk about neural adaptability and neuroelasticity. That's the word. Talk about low IQ. But here we are where our brains adapt, and they do adapt. Like London cab drivers, their frontal cortex adapts to location-based things. And you'll find people that can memorize things. And when I had my paper route when I was a kid, I had 100 or so customers. And for the first 2 or 3 months, I had to keep track of if they paid, when they paid, in a book to keep track of their payments. But after that, I kept it in my head. I could remember it. I could picture it in my head. But you got to understand, I was at the bottom 10% of my high school class. And, granted, a lot of that was laziness as opposed to, not applying myself. I didn't see the purpose in it. I didn't have the drive or the interest, and it didn't come naturally. It wasn't fun for me. The social part of it wasn't good. It was all around just not a great experience. And you may have had the same thing, or you may have fit right in. And you may be one of those people with, the super high IQ, but you're not finding satisfaction in your particular job. What I'm here to say is, don't worry about it, IQ, meaning find ways that you learn. And I've found ways that I learn. I learn very quickly visually. So, I'm a YouTube addict. If I can read a blog or a book or even listen to a book or a blog, but I need to see it and I need to do it. If I don't see it and do it, I don't learn it. I understand it, but, time goes by and I'm like, oh, where did it go? And that's me. Everyone's a little different, and that's okay. And we've got to get away from this locking people into their limits of the IQ. And, teachers do it to us, and we kind of get stuck in this little what did Malcolm Gladwell call it? The Matthew effect, where if you get this little advantage when you're young, that it ripples. And the same is true with a disadvantage. It ripples throughout your life. What we got to do is stop that and turn it positive. Turn it and focus it on the good things, on the things that we do want. And to separate our emotions from this, from our real intelligence, our real thought process. Because I think that's more of control, more intellectual value, is the people that can put a little space between the stimulus that pops into their head and then what pops out their mouth. I say this all the time because I'm on social media all the time, and I share content, and I'm trying to share ideas and share my lessons and stuff. And sometimes people just get locked on things. And, every time I talk about hard work or strategy or anything but hard work, people flip out. No, it's 100% hard work. Well, there's people all over the world. You think the people, carrying water from the river back to the village aren't working hard? They work harder than I do, right? But that, are they having the life of their dreams? Maybe, maybe not. I don't want to judge anybody else's life. But what we got to understand is like the people that work at Walmart or, open the Starbucks at 5 o'clock in the morning, they're working hard. But are they having the success that they want? Is that their dream? Is that the only option that they see available to them? This is what I talk about when I say strategy. And I'm going to do a whole episode on strategy because nobody seems to understand the meaning of it, that we're locked down in this hustle and grind mantra. And I have nothing against the hustle and grind as long as it's on what you like to do, you want to do, and that what rewards you. What most people are doing is they're hustling and grinding on something for someone else or on the anticipation of a lottery award years down the line, and it never comes, and then they're disillusioned. Or they give up too early on something that there is substance to it. And they're sold, a dream based off of a bunch of fictional Lamborghinis in some guy's garage, or, a guy who rented a jet and put on his, logo on it for a couple of $1,000s that day, and now makes it look like his jet, and all of a sudden people buy into it because it hits their social proof button and say, oh, I want to be like them. But then does it make any sense that they would be selling you something, that's a couple of dollars a month on how they became successful? If they're that successful, I think they would spend their time enjoying their lives. The people that I see, they either go and they give back, but they don't try and sell, some gimmicky thing. I've known people who have had, $100 million exits from companies, and they go and they do charity, or they just go and escape and enjoy the rest of their life. Or maybe they go and teach people, or they invest in other companies. They don't go on YouTube and scam people. They just don't. So let's say you are branded like I was with either, low IQ, or you didn't fit into school. You didn't do well on SATs or the standardized tests. And I can blame having dyslexia for it. But, that doesn't explain a lot of things. Most of it I blame on I just didn't get into school. When I did apply myself to college, I did pretty good, okay. And then I got into computer programming, which is not easy, and I was okay. I was probably a B-plus programmer, but I also knew I wasn't never going to be an A or an A-plus programmer. So I got into sales, where actually the brains and the hustle and grind work really well together if you're going in the right direction. Too often, I'd see managers hiring the hustle and grind people who went in the wrong direction. There's a story. I'll tell you a quick story. The worst manager of my life. He split up my territory, and he hired this guy he used to work with. And the guy was just, the young, testosterone-filled, meathead, athlete guy who just, just would run at something as hard as could be, would cold call all day. He lasted 6 months. He got like one renewal deal, which was like a give me, and nothing else. And he alienated all his customers, and he just burnt the territory, and he just wasn't a match for the job. Now, he could have been successful in like selling, copy or cartridge refills, or, subscriptions over the phone, or something that only required the hustle and grind. It didn't require actually thinking and empathizing with somebody else and being creative and being patient and understanding the other person's perspective. Now, people call this emotional intelligence. I think there's all kinds of intelligence. I think there's all kinds of adaptability. And I say focus on the kind that you have and exploit it and, stick with it and utilize it and maximize it. And instead of feeling bad that you didn't put the triangle in the triangle spot when you were 5 years old, or the circle in the circle spot, or, let's face it, you take a 5-year-old boy, that boy wants to take that circle and square and throw it at you, right? That's their instinct. It's like we can't let these little things from our childhood limit us. What we got to do is say, like, how do I learn? And if you don't know, experiment. You're listening to podcasts, at least this one. Try more podcasts, right? If it works for you, because you can just put it in your ears. You got to walk around. You got to wait in the Starbucks line or the grocery store or in traffic. You're better off utilizing it, learning something and applying it. And don't let it get in your way. Just find out your learning mode and stick with it and get better at it and keep learning and understand that IQ, I do not believe is fixed. I honestly don't. I think if I really practiced at math every day, I could probably be okay. I don't hint that I could ever be a mathematician, but I could probably figure it out after years and years, and today you've got everything available on YouTube. You can hire tutors. You can take classes online. The things that we can do today were not available even 5 or 10 years ago. Even I've got into e-learning, both giving classes and taking classes. And in just the 2 years, it has become 10 to 100 times easier to produce a class, to sell a class, to work with people online and have it be effective. 2 years. Right? I mean, and I tried it a couple years ago, and it was clunky and cumbersome and super expensive. And, all of a sudden when it's expensive, you got to pass that cost on, or you got to build it in. You got to make it worth your while as an instructor. But today it's super inexpensive. And, we can get on office hours, and I can share and talk with people about their problems. They can send it to me in voicemail and email, or on a private video on YouTube. So many things are available to us. The excuses are gone. All we need is to get ready. So get ready and get out there. So connect up with me on LinkedIn. Please tell somebody about this podcast. I will be coming out with a course on interviewing and getting your dream job. I'll tell you exactly how hiring managers hire, how to go through each step of the interview. If you want to be a beta member of that course, hit me up. I'll exchange your input for access to the course. And anything I can do to help you, just connect up with me on LinkedIn, Brian Burns on LinkedIn, and my website is B2BRevenue.com. B, the number 2, numeral 2, BRevenue.com.